Evening, Jerry Doyle. I'm from Baytown, Texas. I have a home there. I moved to Baytown from Houston because my son and my grandchildren were there. I wasn't there but a year or so, and he moved to Houston to start his own business there. I am a candidate for United States Congress because I think, not only do I think, I believe, and I totally believe that I can make a difference as a United States Congressman representing the 36th District of Texas. Excuse me a little, I have my new teeth in this evening, so you'll excuse me. No, I haven't been drinking. I honestly believe that I can make a difference in Washington, D.C. with Congress, other congressmen working together. When you can sit down and talk to somebody, discuss the problems, look for solutions, I think most anybody can get something done in that case. I'm not here. I'm only one person. There's no way I can stand here and tell you that I am going to Congress and I am going to vote this in and I'm going to do this and that. One thing I do believe in is transparency. I am one of the guys that is totally and unequivocally against what's going on behind closed doors. Some of the congressmen and senators becoming millionaires as a result of the stock market. That's not transparency. That's there to get what they can for themselves. That's not why I'm going. There's only one other thing I have to say, and then I'll give the floor up to somebody else. If I'm fortunate enough to be elected, and you, the public, are fortunate enough to have me there, I will work for 1 year and forego the wages of a United States Congressman, which are $174,000 a year. Can I do that and live? Yes. I can live on 6 months of salary. I will turn that money back to the Treasury. That's about all I have to say, and I thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight, for being here, and for the Clear Lake Tea Party to put the event on. My name is Mike Jackson. I'm your current Texas State Senator for District 11, which is South and East Harris County, Galveston County, and Brazoria County. I am in the construction business here, which I have been for over 28 years now. We have an industrial construction company called Force Corporation. We employ over 100 people that work out in the field in the petrochemical arena. People ask me why I'm leaving the Texas Senate and running for the United States Congress. I served 10 years in the House. I was elected in 1988. I was elected to the Senate in 1998, and I'm currently there now. I was elected by my colleagues as the President pro tempore of the Senate, which means if the governor and lieutenant governor are out of state, I am the acting governor, which I have been for 15 days since the session ended last summer. But why am I running? You know, Texas is in better shape now probably than all other 50 states in the Union. Look at California. Look at states that are equal or close to us in population. They're in bad shape. Texas is in good shape. I look at Congress, and they need some help up there, I promise you. And I have decided that if I want to gripe about them and I have an opportunity to do something about it, I'm going to take my opportunity to do that. There are 4 or 5 things that we need to do immediately when we get there, and you know, if or when Obama is not going to be there, it's going to make it a whole lot easier. But number one, we've got to create jobs. Look at the pipeline situation that was just turned down at Keystone with Obama. Immediately, thousands of jobs created. We have got to stop the spending of money that we don't have. We have got to stop these stimulus packages that are going on right now. We need to cut taxes on our businesses, especially our manufacturing businesses, that we are losing jobs overseas daily. We hear about facilities moving over there. We need to repeal Obamacare immediately. There's no way we should pay billions of dollars for something that's not going to work. We have to strike out and try to get a balanced budget for the United States of America so we're not spending money that we don't have. We do that in Texas. It's not that hard. We can do it. We need to secure our borders. We have servicemen and women coming back now from overseas who are being laid off in the name of a budget cut, where that's the worst possible place we could cut spending. We need to cut spending on foreign aid packages that are going overseas and paying countries who hate us and want to shoot us. We can put these men and women in our military to work on our border, making sure that we secure our border. Are we up time? Okay. One other thing, cuts in military, quit it, stop. We're not in a position to do that. I'm Mike Jackson, running for CD-36. Appreciate your attention.
Thank you so much for having us this evening, Clear Lake Tea Party, and for all of you for coming out tonight. I have a mission to take to the nation in Washington, D.C. I have a plan and a vision of how I can help save America for my grandbabies in Houston, where I've lived for 34 years, and all of your grandchildren. And it's very simple. I subscribe to the KISS theory, keep it simple, stupid. We all have identified the problems. We know basically in this room right now what our problems are in America. But has anyone come up with a solution, an answer? Well, I believe that through my past work experiences and history, as I look back, I've been given a vision on how and why and what we need to do. When I worked for an oil company, W.B. Hamilton Estate of Wichita Falls, Texas, from the late 70s to the early 80s, I learned the oil business from A to Z. And they were terribly opposed to the windfall profits tax of 1981 that Jimmy Carter pushed through. And that tax was so heavy, no other industry has been taxed that heavily. It taxed the oil when it came out of the ground at wellhead before overhead expenditures were deducted. And what happened as a result was that almost all of the independent oil companies were killed in 2 years. The independent oil companies drilled 80% of our domestic found oil. I remember my boss saying, congratulating me for writing a letter to every U.S. senator and congressman opposing the tax, saying that if they passed that windfall profits tax, the Saudis would laugh us all the way to the bank. And the price of oil would shoot up to over $80 a barrel. Well, he'd be rolling in his grave if he saw where it is now. In other words, keep it simple, stupid. We need to regain control of our own oil prices and supplies. And if we do not, oil being the #1 leading commodity in the industrialized world, which we're in, we will never be out from behind the 8 ball. We lost that control in 1981. And if I get to Congress, will do everything in my power to get rid of every tax on the oil companies, the independent American companies, as I possibly can. It's great to have the Keystone Pipeline. However, we need to be asking tough questions of TransCanada. What are the American oil companies going to get out of this? Who's going to own the oil? If it goes into the refineries after this tar sands, which is like tar on the road, beats up our refineries, who's going to own that oil after it gets out of the refineries? I used to be, for 15 years, the Gulf Coast sales manager for the only national full-service marine and offshore oil supply company. I brought them tons of business in the oil industry. I believe that if we get control of our own oil, gas prices, and supplies again, we will become strong as a nation. And we need to secure our borders because 62 countries from around the world come across that border every year with hardcore narco-terrorists. And we've got to stop it, control the world's population, regain control of America, and then we'll get America back.
Hi, thank you for having us out tonight. I'm Stephen Takash from Baytown, Texas, and I think you need to know a little bit about the background of your candidates. I was actually born in West Virginia, moved to Texas when I was 15 years old, and now I'm a naturalized Texan. I went to Liberty High School. I graduated in 1980 and then went to Lamar University where I earned a BBA in accounting in 1990, actually 1991. I took my first job in accounting with Panhandle Eastern. Speaking of pipelines, we've all heard of Texas Eastern and Panhandle Eastern. Well, I did all the accounting for the Texas Eastern pipeline for about 3 years. But you know, after a couple of years of working with numbers, $50 million a month, I looked around and I just wasn't helping anybody. So I started a new venture. I went to work for Edward Jones and opened up an office in Baytown, Texas, and I've now been there 18 years. Now, that's not what you're here for. You want to know why I'm running for Congress. And the reason is I have lived the American dream. I've got to start 2 businesses. They've both been successful businesses. And I've got to raise a family. I have 2 beautiful girls, one of them sitting back there tonight. I have got to live the American dream. But I tell you today, I'm worried. I'm worried about the future for our kids and our grandkids. You know, we have 536 people today in Washington, and they are making decisions for 300 million Americans. And I'll tell you, they're not listening. They're not listening to you. They're not listening to me. They're not listening to Clear Lake. They are not listening to we the people anymore. You know, 3 years ago, the deficit was $8 trillion. Today, the deficit is $15 trillion, and by the time the election rolls around, we will have a $16 trillion deficit. We cannot allow the uncontrolled spending in Washington anymore. So I'll tell you, I'm just a businessman with a degree in accounting, with a passion for helping people. I'm running for District 36, and I would appreciate your vote and your support. Thank you, and God bless you.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me here tonight. Thanks to the Tea Party, and let's get on with it. I've got a couple things for you tonight. On the chairs and tables, you're going to see a placard about what I'm going to do when I get to Washington. And this is a story about me that I couldn't have written myself and written it any better. So if you take those with you, that would be great. I'd like to talk to you tonight about a few things and tell you that as a husband and a father and a small business owner, I understand the tough times that we're going through right now. And I understand that the current administration has forgotten what it's like to work for a living. Hard work, strong moral character, it's what's made us strong today. And I think it's time to take our country back. I think it's time to get rid of the liberal spenders in Washington. And that's why I've decided to accept my own challenge and run for District 36. In 2006, I accepted a challenge and I ran for the City Council of Seabrook, Texas, where I've been for the last 6 years. When I went into that office, we were suffering from front page news every week in the Citizen. We had a fractured council, we had a bad city manager, we had lawsuits with the port, we weren't developer friendly, we had no economic development. I can go on and on and on and on. We have 12,000 people that live in Seabrook. The first year of the first election, there were 1,200 people that voted, which to get 10% of people out to vote is pretty darn high. This last election, I ran unopposed, and we had 385 people show up to vote. So it lets you know that when people are happy, everything is good, then we're okay. And we have gone through Hurricane Ike. I was Mayor Pro Tem during Hurricane Ike. And we worked hard to get the area back into shape. We were the hardest hit of all of them. And I'm very proud of what we've done in Seabrook, and I think I can take that with us to Washington. Now, part of what I would like to talk about tonight also is that I believe in term limits. I think that we should pass a constitutional amendment that we have 2 4-year terms. That would cut down on the expense of having elections every 2 years. And also we could have the elections during the presidential cycle, and I think it would be a whole lot better for us. And like I said, I am for term limits. Also, the main thing in my platform I want to talk to you about is I want to start an industrial revolution. You can talk about protecting borders, you can talk about immigration, you can talk about sending jobs overseas, you can talk about the deficit, you can talk all about these things. But what we need to do is that we need to start a new industrial revolution. Educate our kids coming out of community colleges to become certified and to get out there and take the jobs that are currently available, whether they be welders or whether they be nurses or whatever. And the more people we get out to go to work, then the less unemployment, the less they draw unemployment, then they get benefits, they get insurance, and the whole thing seems to work a whole lot better if we go at it from that way. Thank you very much. My time is up. I'm Kim Morrell. Please vote for me.
I too want to thank you all for coming out tonight. And right from the get-go, I'm going to get this out of the way. I am a licensed funeral director and embalmer, and everybody always has a good funeral director's embalmer's joke. And so I'm going to throw this out. I am in favor of preserving liberty and freedom for America. I am in favor of getting our country out of the hole that it's in. That said, I also want to, listen to these folks. We actually are blessed, and we've got the American flag. We're honored to be here. We're privileged to be here, in fact, because of our founding fathers and what they went through to allow us to have the freedom and liberty, freedom of speech, be able to assemble together, to be able to pray. Those were paid for with blood and effort. And with that said, I would encourage everyone to remember to never give up, to strive for the good and the noble, to leave this land a better place than we found it. There's not a whole lot of difference. We're all in favor of preserving our country. I'll use that word again. For our children, our grandchildren, my wife and I, we're tremendously concerned about the condition of our country right now. The future of the country that we're going to be turning over to our children and grandchildren. I grew up in Woodville, Texas, salt of the earth mother and dad. My dad was a pipeliner. We had the opportunity to move all over the country, actually all over the world, but we always had our home in Woodville, and it was always good to be able to come back home. Home is America. Home is Texas. Home is Southeast Texas. I love the lakes, the trees, the land, the people of Southeast Texas. And because of that, I do feel God led to enter this campaign. We all have very similar views on issues as Republicans. Most of us are pretty conservative Republicans. But I think the thing, and you can go to a website, kygriffin.com, and it has my issues, but these folks have addressed several of those issues. The thing that I have not heard, and the thing that I'm going to talk about tonight, is that I believe in a fair tax. How many of y'all would be in agreement that our federal income tax is an insanely complex albatross around our necks? Indeed, it's a chain of oppression and intimidation that we're all experiencing. With a fair tax, I believe that we would address goodness. Okay. Go to the website, and I would welcome the opportunity to visit with y'all about the fair tax. Thank you.
First of all, thank you all for coming out tonight, and I want to thank the Clear Lake Tea Party for putting this venue on. One other thing, we have a small business person back here, and she sells coffee, and other folks, please visit them and patronize them. Small business is the backbone of our country, and we need to make sure we take care of it. One other thing I want to do real quick is recognize, please, if you are a service member or have service members in your family, please raise your hand. Please give these folks a round of applause. Thank you very much for your service. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to briefly tell you a little bit about who I am and what I saw and why I'm here tonight and why I decided to get involved in the 36th Congressional District race. Again, I'm Colonel Jim H. Strand, and I had the great honor, and have had the great honor for 24 years to serve in the United States Army, National Guard, and Reserve. I've served active duty tours, and in 2008, actually 2009, I had been given the great honor to go and serve our country in Iraq as the Deputy Division Surgeon for Multinational Division South, where I set up the health service support for the 9 southern provinces for our troops down in the southern portion of Iraq, as well being the Senior Medical Liaison Officer for all of Iraq. And my job there was to make sure the most serious wounded got sent back to the United States for their convalescence. And I saw a lot of young men and women, the finest that we have, torn to shreds, and some of them taken off of helicopters and body bags. And it stuck with me, and as I watched our rules of engagement in that country, in Iraq, where they were fighting to go ahead and give an oppressed nation an opportunity to experience some of those freedoms that we have and those liberties. Liberties given to us by a God, not a government or a man, to another nation, to people who've been oppressed for many, many years. I watched our rules of engagement get tighter and tighter. Our young men and women would watch as a IED was being placed in the roadside, but we couldn't fire on it, only to have the results later on show up at our doorstep in our hospital, our young men and women torn to shreds, wounded, killed. And then I looked back here and I watched as the entire country entered a new regime, and I'll call it a regime, and I will not bow from that. This is a regime. Take a look at Venezuela. A lot of similar ideals come out of this administration. We need bold, tenacious, ferocious leaders, young men and women, just like Rubio, Alan West. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what I'm hearing about. I am a constitutional Christian conservative. I grew up on a dairy farm. I understand hard work, and I will fight boldly, tenaciously, and I will make a difference. Yes, we all want smaller government, and I will bring you that smaller government. You don't have to ask me which departments need to be cut, downsized, reduced. They all need to be looked at. But most importantly, and at the top, I say the education department needs to be downsized. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I look forward to answering your questions.